Hi, third graders. It's good to see you coming to check your DMA. Remember, these are super important skills that you're going to need to continue when you go to fourth grade. So make sure that you are working on these practice problems on a daily basis. They're super important. So let's take a look at week 19, and we're on day 3. So today's Wednesday, and we're going to do day 3. And you will notice that we are working with a graph. Now, does anybody know what kind of graph this is? If you said a bar graph, you would be correct. So today we are going to look at information or data. Data is information, and we're looking at it based on a bar graph. Now, some important information to look at on a bar graph is, first, the title. We always want to make sure we know what the title of our graph is. So here it says points scored in a game. So we have the number of points, which is part of our scale. And you'll notice that our scale, we call these numbers a scale, and they're going by twos. So in between our twos would be 1, 3, 5, 7, those would 9, those would be what would be between those. So if we had a bar that was between, which we do, there's a bar that's between these two groups of 2, or we call them intervals of 2. These intervals of 2, we could see that in between those intervals of 2 or groups of 2 would be the odd numbers because we're going by even numbers. Lost my pencil. All right, so now let's take a look at who the players are. So it tells us these are the names of the players. So Carson, Jalen, and Trisha. Those are our players that are playing. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, focus it so we can see it a little bit better. And they're asking us, based on this information here, this data, how many total points were scored in the game. So how many total points were scored in the game? Well, these were your players. So these are the players that scored points. Maybe some of the other players didn't score points. We don't know because we don't know what the game was, really. So let's take a look at how many points did Carson score during the game. So if you notice, the bar goes up to where it's level with 8. So Carson scored 8 points. Jalen, we'll notice it's that person, Jalen, scored 10 points. And if you notice, Trisha is between the 14 and the 16. Well, that tells us that if it's between 14 and 16, the number that's between 14 and 16 is 15. So now we are going to take all 3 of their points. Now, if it had just said how many points did Carson and Jalen score, then we would have just used their points and added them together. But since it's asking how many points total, how many total points, we know that we're going to use all 3 pieces of information or data from our bar graph. So this is Carson. He scored 8 points, or she. This person scored 10 points, which was Jalen, and Trisha scored 15 points. Now, to make it easy for myself to add, I could add 10 on to 15, and 10 and 15, remember there's another 10 added here, so that makes 25 when we add that together. Now I could add another 5 and 3 more. So if I add 25 plus 5 from this 8, that would be 30, and then the 3 more would make 33 points. So when I add these, and please make sure to write an equation here. Please do not just write 33 points. I want you to make sure you write an equation to go with it. So 33 points, you could also, if you needed to, add on to this. Remember that your equation can have the sum on the left side also. Because remember, an equal sign does not mean the answer. An equal sign means it's the same as. So 33 is the same as 8 plus 10 plus 15. Okay? So bar graphs are a type of graph that show data in bars. Okay? Bar graph. Now let's take a look at our word problem. It says Nadia has 4 packs of gum. So really those could be a group, right? That have 4 pieces each. So if I just start to visualize this a little bit for myself, I can see that this person, Nadia, has 4 packs of gum, and in each pack, she's got 4 pieces. So I'm just going to put a 4P here for P for pieces, 4 pieces of gum. So the bar is the pack, and the 4 pieces are inside each pack. Hopefully that makes sense. Now it says, if she wants to share her gum with 8 of her friends, how many pieces will each friend get? So this is a 2-step problem, because first we need to know how many pieces we have of gum before we can share them. So before we can share anything, we have to know how many pieces of gum there are. So we need to know how many pieces there are, so we would use what to figure it out? Well, I've already drawn what we visualized or what we can see in our mind so far. Well, I could either use repeated addition to find out how many pieces of gum I have, or remember what repeated addition is? It's also multiplication, right? So I'm going to go to the back of my paper here, and I'm just going to draw my model. Remember, we're drawing a model. And each bar, I'm going to go back to what I was visualizing in my head earlier. Here's a pack of gum, here's a pack of gum, here's a pack of gum, and here's a pack of gum. And inside each pack of gum is 4 pieces of gum. So again, that P means pieces. Now, when I add all these pieces of gum together, remember this is the same as saying 4 groups of 4. 4 packs with 4 pieces of gum each pack. And again, I'm looking for what is my product? It's going to be all the gum, total pieces, right? So if I add 4 and 4, that makes 8, and this 4 and 4 makes 8. And now I have 2 groups of 8, and 8 and 8 is 16. Now, the next step is I'm going to take these pieces of gum and I'm going to share them equally. And so what that means is I'm going to take these pieces of gum and divide them equally between my 8 friends. So now I'm taking another step to my problem solving. So here are my 8 friends. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm taking the 16 pieces of gum and I'm sharing or dividing them equally between these groups. These are my friends. My friends are the groups. And now I want to know how many pieces of gum each friend gets. So pieces each friend. So now I can go one at a time and put pieces of gum in there. until I get to 16. Or since this is an even number, we could start off with 2's. And let's see if we can think about this as a multiplication fact. If we have 8 groups and we know how many parts or how many pieces each person has, well, which we don't, we would know that there are 16 total. So really what we're looking for is this missing factor, which will be our quotient for our division equation. So I'm just relating this how, if you know your multiplication facts really well, you can really start to understand how this missing factor is actually our quotient for division. So I'm going to take and I'm going to divide and share these pieces equally. So I have 2 pieces here, 2 pieces here. That's 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Well, those are all 16 pieces that I used. So now I can see that every friend was able to get 2 pieces of gum once we've shared them. So now, in my answer statement, I would say each friend, so let me move my paper a little bit here, up. So now in my answer statement, I would say each friend, and please make sure you are practicing writing out your response. Some of you, I am still getting your DMA without any responses being written. Please make sure you write out your response. We're doing this together, so you may as well make sure that you also practice this skill too. Each friend gets 2 pieces of gum because, so now we're going to provide evidence on how we know that they're getting 2 pieces. Because if we get our total, because we had to find the total first, by adding 4 groups of 4, there are 16 pieces. Now remember, these are total pieces, right? Then our next step was to take the 16 pieces. So our first step is here. So we've already stated our first step. Now we can go to the next step and say next or then. It's almost like writing a paragraph. Then we take the 16 pieces and share them equally by dividing, right? By dividing by, or into, let's say into, because we already just used by here, into 8 groups, or between 8 friends. So each friend gets, and I know this is a lot of writing, but again, we need to practice the skill of being able to explain our thinking. So each friend gets 2 pieces of gum. All right, now you're finished with your explanation. You have a model to show how you figured this out. And actually we have 2 models because the first one we had to draw a model to find out how many pieces we had. The second part was we had to take those pieces of gum and then break them up into parts. Now, you'll notice that we're not looking for fact families here. We're using what we know about 16 pieces of gum to share them equally between friends. So don't get this confused with a fact family. We're actually doing something different with these 16 pieces of gum. Okay? Let's take a look at our next problem, which is going to be division equations. We're looking for the missing number in each one of these division equations. Now, in this case, we're looking for our divisor. We're missing the groups. In this case, we're missing our total, which is our dividend. And here, we're missing the quotient. So each one of those parts has a name for its part in a division equation. So we're missing the divisor here. So we can either think about this as how many groups we have or how many is in each group. Now, if we decide to do how many is in each group, then we're looking for the groups here. So it's up to you how you want to do it. But to me, it might be easy to use repeated subtraction and continue to take away groups of 6 from the total until we get to 0, which is completely possible. Or we could count up by 6s to 54 and find out how many groups of 6 we have. So we can do this both ways. So let's try by doing 6, 12, 18, 6 more would be 24, 6 more to 24 would be 30, 36, add 6 more to 36, now we're at 42, 42, add 6 more, we're at 48, and finally add 6 more, now we're at 54. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups. It took me 9 groups of 6 or 9 groups of adding 6 to get to 54 when I skip counted. That's my pattern. So there are 9 groups. Now I could also do the same thing here, but what you'll notice is when I'm subtracting 6, I'm starting with 54 and I'm going to subtract 6 and that's going to give me 48. Subtract 6 more. That's going to give me 42. Subtract 6 more. Now I'm going to be at 36. Subtract 6 more. Now I'm going to be at 30. Subtract 6 more. Now I'm going to be at 24. And if I continue to keep subtracting 6, you'll notice that this pattern is going backwards instead of forwards. So we'll be at 18, and then if I subtract 6 again, 8 minus 6 is 2, and that gives me 12. Subtract 6 again, and that gives me 6. And finally, if I take 6 minus 6, that's 0. So again, how many times did I subtract 6? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I was able to subtract 6 9 times from 54. So again, lots of different ways to think about this, but you can use one strategy to help. Now here we don't know our total, but we do know how many groups we have, and we do know that there are 6 in each group. So to figure out a missing dividend, we need to be able to use multiplication to figure out the missing whole or the missing total. So if I had 4 groups and I put 6 objects in each group, there would be a group of 6 here, a group of 6 here, a group of 6 here, and a group of 6 here. Now, 6 and 6 is 12. Plus another 6 would be 18, plus another 6 would be 24. We just counted by 6s up here, so we may as well just use what we just did a little while ago to help us out. So we would have 24 objects. Now let's make sure that this matches what we're thinking. If I take these 24 objects and I put them into 4 equal groups, how many objects are going to be in each group? Well, we know that there's going to be 6 because we can say 6, 12, 18, 24. There's 24 objects to start with. And if I share them equally into 4 groups, I get 6 objects in each group. Let's look at number 18. If I have 18 objects and I want to share them equally into 3 groups, then I need to know how many objects will go in each group. So 3 times blank equals 18. Now, I should be able to use my understanding of multiplication to help me with this. But again, if I don't know my multiplication facts yet, we can use what we know about putting these into equal groups until I reach 18. So let's see. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 tally marks. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Not quite there yet. I have to reach 18. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and finally 18. Well, when I divided these 18 objects into the 3 groups equally, I see that I have 6 objects in each group. And so this n means we're going to replace it with a number. So n is the number that we're using to replace this quotient. So now we can check using multiplication. Do I have 3 groups? Yes. How many do I have in each group? I have 6. When I add these 3 groups of 6, do I get the 18 that I used to start with? Well, 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 6 more, yes, is 18. So using what I know about division, I can check by using multiplication. All right, now let's take a look at our multiplication. Again, this is still multiplication because we are talking about groups of. Now, if I have 7 groups of 40, this might make it easier for me to, instead of adding 70 groups or 7 groups of 40, If I were to add 40 groups of 7, that would take me much longer than if I add 7 groups of 40. Now, we could also think about patterns of 4 and add that to what we know about groups of 4 and add groups of 40 instead. So, for example, if I did 1 group of 4, that would be 4. 2 groups of 4 would be 8. 3 groups of 4 would be 12. 4 groups of 4 would be 16. 5 groups of 4 would be 20. And I'm just basically skip counting by 4s, right? Then I would have 6 groups of 4 is 24. And finally, 28. Now, just like patterns of 4, I can do patterns of 4D. So if I were to add groups of 40, it would follow the same pattern as adding 4s, but now we're in the tens place. So 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, 240, and 280. So 40 groups of 7 or 7 groups of 40 would give me 280. Now we could look at 8 groups of 30. So again, if I know my 3s, I could use that understanding to help me with patterns of 30s. So let's give it a try. Well, if I do 3, that's 1. 2 groups would be 6. 3 times 3 would be 9. 3 times 4 would be 12. 3 times 5 would be 15. 3 times 6 would be 18. 3 times 7 would be 21. And 3 times 8 would be 24. Oops, 4. Now, if I take what I understand about my multiples of 3, and now instead of doing multiples of 3, I can do multiples of 30. So 30 and 30 make 60. Add another group of 30, that would be 90. 120. Notice I don't have anything in my ones place here, so that ones place is going to be 0 every time because I don't care how many times I add 0 in my ones place, it's still going to be 0. So you'll notice that these digits right here, my 1s and my 10s, are shifting 10 more over, 10 times what they were before. So this would be 150, 180, 210, and finally 240. Hopefully this is making sense to you. And finally, 8 groups of 5, or excuse me, 50 groups of 8 or 8 groups of 50. And 50s, counting by 50s can be fairly easy because we can count by 5s, right? If I were to count by 5s, I could go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So we know 8 times 5 is 40. So if we know 8 times 5 is 40, then if it's just 10 times that, 8 times 50 would be 400. And if we even wanted to go a little bit further, 8 times 500 would be 4,000. And we could continue that idea of a basic fact to help us with continuing to add on some zeros to this factor here. And we could continue this all the way up to forever. But we're going to stop there because we have what we need as our product. Remember, the answer to a multiplication equation is called the product. Say it, product. Yes, our product is going to be 400. We could also do 50 plus 50 plus 50 plus 50. That's 4 groups of 50, right? Plus 50 plus 50 plus 50 plus 50. So just like multiplication with the single digits, we could do repeated addition with our double digits too. So it's still going to be repeated addition despite having 50s there, okay? So don't think that this is a division equation. It's not division. We're not sharing this equally. We are making sure that we are taking the time to look at patterns. Okay, so that's Wednesdays. Your discussion question is going to be, the clue word for today is going to be bar graph. Bar graph is your discussion word or phrase that you're going to put in for today. So make sure you get that completed and have a great Wednesday, guys. Bye. See you tomorrow.